Hello, good morning, and I'm here at the east side part of Kirkintilloch, and what you will see behind me just there is what I've been looking for, which was the plaque for the 10 young men who lost their lives aged between 13 and 23 in 1937 in a fire in a bothy, which was where migrant workers were kept and locked in. And to date, nobody has been held accountable for that, but clearly it has left its own indelible mark. Not only is there a plaque behind me, but facing the plaque has a bench on which there clearly have been placed some flowers, and also some lovely wee stones that commemorate the names of the people who died there. And a nice kind of touching kind of tribute to the people: Thomas Catigan, Patrick Cobain, Thomas Cobain, Owen Cobain, John Mangan, Thomas Mangan, Michael Mangan, John McLaughlin, Martin McLaughlin and Patrick McNeela. The youngest of whom was Michael Mangan, who at the age of 13 lost his life. Their life here was being brought over from a particular part of Ireland in order to work the harvest. Migrant workers were used throughout the whole of Scotland and still are, and it's one of the things that Brexit is going to have, going to bring us a number of problems. And they're used in order to harvest, they're used in order to help with our tourist industry. And come the 1st of November or thereafter, we're not going to have access to that type of labour, and we're going to have to depend on people who live here, who at the moment are not picking up the tab in order to do it. Now I'm getting in the car because it's absolutely pouring with rain. So the story was one that I had come across and wanted to know a little bit more about, and couldn't find the plaque. And it's a couple of times where I've gone out and trying to find things and not been able to find them. And fortunately, living in Kirkintilloch and having people around about me who knew where it was went, it's there, which was rather nice. And commemorating that is quite kind of nice. It's been much in my mind for a lot of different reasons, migration in particular. And the reason for that comes personally, and also what's been in my ears over the last wee while, because the fire with the Irish itinerant workers coming over here. I do tutoring during the week, and I tutor 8 kids. One of the kids has left me this week because he's a Northern Ireland internationalist who currently plays for Kilmarnock, and he's leaving school. He goes to school at least one day a week at the moment, but he has, and something's happened to my, there we go. He goes to school one day a week at the moment, and he's going to leave school because he wants to give the whole thing a go in terms of being a football there. So despite the fact that he plays for Kilmarnock, I wish him all the best. He's a great wee guy. He was doing advanced higher drama at school, and it leaves a slot now at the moment with him in it. I have 8 kids, 4 white, 1 Hindi, 1 Sikh, 2 Muslim. They're all a variety of different economic backgrounds. There are those that certainly come from fairly well-to-do families, and those who don't. And me being me, it's the ones who don't that I do tend to feel slightly more empathy with and want to do much, much better for them, which is perhaps slightly prejudicial, but I do my best for all of them anyway. And getting the opportunity to work with these kids is really quite privileged, because particularly those who are 2nd, 3rd generation migrant families, the prejudice that they see on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis is quite heartbreaking at times. It's heartbreaking because I live in a country that believes that somewhere it's welcoming, and Scotland needs migration, and Scotland needs people of different nationalities to come in. And there was a survey many moons ago that said there were 71 different first languages in primary schools and Scottish schools, and that to me was something that people jumped on. Appalling, dreadful, blah blah blah. We're a country with 3 languages: English, Gaelic and Scots. We already have inbuilt a diversity towards how we behave and who we are. Why is it so difficult to accept that we should have these different migrating people coming towards us and not see it as a compliment? I don't know, but it's been much in my mind, not just because I'm looking for where the bothy had been, and also Ewan deciding that he was going to go and pursue the path of pure football, but also because in my ears I've been listening to a podcast that has just come to the end, Death in Ice Valley, which is a fantastic podcast. It's the BBC who do this kind of thing very well, BBC World Service along with the NRK, which is the Norwegian state broadcaster, about a woman who was found in 1970 in a valley, badly burnt body. Nobody knows who she is. They still don't know who she is. 49 years later. And a number of theories were put out there. Eventually, the official investigation decided it was suicide. And the Second Glass podcast that I was listening to this week brought it into an entirely different sphere. We had gone down, maybe she was a prostitute, maybe she was somebody who had been a spy during the Cold War. And then we discovered that she was her age, because they do this thing with teeth. Who knew? To age, to find out what age you were. She was born in the 1920s, and she was born in Nuremberg, which, growing up when you're 10, 12, 13 years old, and she may well have been Jewish, in a town where Hitler based a lot of his great, huge rallies. And these rallies were at the core of how Hitler managed to build his popularity. Not only that, they were spectacles, massive spectacles. You could not watch them and not be impressed in some way until you realised what they signified. So, yeah, in a sense they were great, because in terms of their organisation and in terms of how they were put together and the spectacle of it, the theatricality of it, they were unlike anything that had ever been seen before. But when you scraped back that smoke and mirrors and you realised what was underneath it, that was absolutely terrifying. And yet another example of how theatre and how performance is used to mind map and mind bend the people who were watching it. Not been a big week for theatre for me this week, though I have written a little piece about what's happening in theatre in terms of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe and what they did, 60 grand being paid in order to open up performances, and the value of having a fringe festival society that is really important, I think, because the Edinburgh Fringe Society does so much as an umbrella body that allows things like BSL interpreters to be on the Royal Mile on a Saturday, every Saturday of the Fringe. It should be every day of the Fringe, of course it should, but you know, we start and we look at that, and at least that's a mechanism through which things can alter, can change. I've also been writing a little bit about Scotty Olsen for Ringside Report. I did a little thing for Brad during the week in terms of his show, which was a play that's been in my mind for a long time, particularly in that car park. What I didn't point out, and I don't think you could see it that day, I think it was too cloudy, is that York Hill is up there, which is of course the hospital where just next to it Ciara and Layla were born, but also where Keris got her open heart surgery at 7 days old. It became quite a well-known haunt for myself and for Niamh, and also for Ciaran when Keris was in hospital. But Scotty Olsen, Canadian boxer, a lovely little set of stories, some very human. I've still to submit it to Brad. I normally get it through to him on a Saturday morning. I'm a wee bit behind because I found it so fascinating. A Canadian boxer around about the time that Lennox Lewis was fighting. He actually went to the Olympics with Lewis. He went to the Commonwealth Games with Lewis, but didn't have the same trajectory professionally as Lewis. But there's also a wee story of how his family saved his life when he had a double heart attack in 2015, which is quite touching, and that kind of human element. The human element that came out last night, overnight, Triple G showed that he is aging. I think that Billy Joe Saunders, who had said Triple G is going to age, is going to show his age during this particular fight, got it absolutely right, because Triple G certainly struggled at parts of it. But what I was looking at before before even the fight began at 2 o'clock this morning, or the broadcast began at 2 o'clock this morning, I have to go back and look at the fight, was I was looking at Kell Brook versus Triple G. And of course, Kell Brook's eye socket was fractured and he had to stop. But I suddenly got a massive amount of respect for Kell Brook just looking at that first 2 or 3 rounds. He really did rattle Golovkin, really did rattle. So Amir Khan, Kell Brook, suddenly to me looks a lot different in terms of a prospect of a fight if he can match that type of ferocity again. Also this week, Air United yesterday, people are, they didn't blow it. They played particularly well. Inverness Caledonian Thistle beat them 2-0. So we now sit still second in the league. Dundee United had lost to Alloa the night before, 1-0. So our goal difference slipped. We missed the opportunity to go top of the league. But I don't think that being at that height in terms of the league, being up at the top, is going to be where we are at the end of the year. If we end up in 4th, I think it's a major triumph, considering what has happened in terms of losing some of our players from last year and the manager midway through. So with that thought in mind, today being Sunday, being pretty miserable, I can't see many things moving in our house outside the front door. But until next week, it's bye for now.